talk therapy that I went through and the medication they put me on, I would get better, come off the medication, go back to work. Then I'd have another episode where something triggered me where I would be back in depression.
Hello and welcome to the Heal Yourself with me, Sarah Dawkins podcast. We share people who've already healed themselves, along with health and wellness tips from myself.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Heal Yourself with me, Sarah Dawkins. Today, my guest is Dave Snell, a retired naval officer who served as a surface warfare officer and a cryptologist, countering terrorism around the world. Since retirement, he's consulted to Fortune 100 companies to secure cybersecurity. And just as the pandemic hit, Dave started healing from post-traumatic stress disorder associated with his service, and Dave identified the 4M's of mental health recovery: movement, mind, meditation, and meaning. So welcome, Dave.
Thank you, Sarah. It's very much a pleasure to be here.
It's my pleasure to have you. So, Dave, you've mentioned undertaking a concerted effort to recover from post-traumatic stress associated with your service. Could you share more about your diagnosis and specifically what you did to heal yourself?
Yes, it's long story short, I had a couple of incidents during my service where not any single one, actually that's not fair either. I've had multiple what I call big T traumas during my service and what I call little T traumas, those little things that happen through our day-to-day routines that stress the body, but they accumulate over time when we don't have time in between those small T traumas to recover, that the body just gets to a point where it's almost as equivalent to a big T trauma. And a big T trauma being an incident, an accident, a gunshot, something associated with war or combat, which mine were not necessarily. I was never in a combat situation where I was shooting back or anything in my time, but I did have some big T traumas in my service. I forgot the rest of the question, sorry.
No worries. And how specifically did you heal yourself?
Well, it was a long journey through multiple ups and downs of these traumas, and the talk therapy that I went through and the medication they put me on. I would get better, come off the medication, go back to work. Then I'd have another episode where something triggered me where I would be back in depression, talk therapy again, more meds. But it wasn't until 2019 when I finally found a therapist who said, this isn't working for you. We've tried EMDR, eye movement disassociation, I forget the R now, reprogramming. Let's try something different. You've done talk therapy for 15 years. Let's try two things simultaneously. One, we did neurotherapy where we electronically stimulated my brain to speed it up where it was depressed and slow it down where it was overactive, anxious versus depressed. And then she also did a vagus nerve reset where they put little magnets on two parts of your brain, your clavicle, and just under your ribs, which is where the vagus nerve, the largest nerve in the body and what controls our fight, flight, or freeze modality, it comes closest to the surface of our body at those points. So it helps us to calm that vagus nerve. And when we're in a traumatic state, our vagus nerve is very hypervigilant. But if you're always in that hypervigilant state, the big T traumas, little T traumas can cause reactions over a long term, which is post-traumatic stress. So we did both of those together, and at the same time, I happened to go into a diet program where I realized that I put on too much weight. I was depressed. I wasn't moving. I was just sedentary in the worst degree. So both of those treatments, along with my diet, and exercise that came as a result of that weight loss contributed to my recovery. And I don't like using the word recovery, because there's always that underlying issue of, okay, the triggers are still there. I just have to learn to cope with them and respond to them better simultaneously.
Thank you. And you've mentioned the treatment and what that entailed. And you've just highlighted diet as part of your healing. What kind of diet did you do? What did you do? Something special? Did you cut out something? Did you eat differently?
Well, I cut out sugars. Processed foods were a no-no. I ate on a regular schedule, particular types of snacks that it was a company that I went through, and they had particular snacks that were protein heavy, fat light, carb negative, essentially. They really did not want us to have carbs, too many carbs, obviously the right kinds of sugars, but not processed sugars. Excuse me. And actually, they didn't want us to walk a lot. They didn't want us to exercise. It was just shock the system into going into fat burn state, hold that for a little while, and then transition your diet back to a healthier appreciation of what it is you're taking in. So you're not going back to the processed sugars, the candy bars, the foods that just don't provide any nutritional value. The candy bars and stuff that you see at the checkout section that are trying to lure you in, we try to get away from those. So, but with that diet and the loss of weight, my energy shot up as a result, and I had to find an outlet for it. So I decided to get back into running again, which, as I was going through this whole process, it was all during COVID. This all started January of 2020, just before COVID really became an issue for the world. And I started listening to a lot of books as I would walk and then run, and reading books. And movement became the number one criteria for helping me. If I was ever in a triggered state, I would have to move the body. I would walk away from it. I would go for a longer walk each time, and just found that, wow, I feel better every time I move my body.
And I'm a huge proponent for movement, for mood disorders, low mood, anxiety, depression. Movement is so profound in the healing aspect, and it, because it lifts our mood and it releases all those happy chemicals in our brain. And just the fact of moving the body, as you've said, it makes you feel better. But at the time, we can bang up against procrastination or a lack of desire, and we know we're going to feel better.
Yes.
But our mind's going, I just can't be bothered. I really don't want to. And you're like, but I know I'm going to feel better when I do this.
Well, that's the sad state of depression, is you get into the do loop, the negative do loop of why bother. The Eeyore of Winnie the Pooh of, oh hum, why would I want to do that? It's just going to get bad again. Well, if you break out and do it enough, that ho hum becomes, oh good, I want to go do something different. And no, you're not going to. And I'm using an analogy with Winnie the Pooh. You're not going to become a Tigger necessarily and hyper vigilant to everything going on around you, but you could be a little bit happier than Eeyore and depressed all the time.
Absolutely, and for sure. And can I ask you, Dave, what was it that prompted you to start your healing? Was it yourself, or was it the therapist that you went to that said one day, let's try something different?
I think it was two things. This is going to get emotional for me a little bit. One was the doctor saying, look, we've tried this for 6 months. Let's try something different. She changed practices, and the new practice offered the two modalities I mentioned. But it was actually my ex-wife looking at me and saying, your daughter is afraid she's going to be like you and have these issues. So I had to come up with a pathway to show her that this is not permanent. It's not necessarily genetic. It's something that I went through, both as a child and in the military. that have longer term effects that she needs to be aware of, but it's not necessarily something that has to be her future. And if it is, God forbid, there are ways out of it.
I hear you.
And frankly, in the last 6 months since I've been separated from her physically, I moved and she's still with her mother. I've tried to convey to her, look, if you do the movement now, do the healthy eating now, when you do have an incident, maybe you won't have the net negative effect that it had on me, on you.
I love that, because that's raising awareness around it.
Yes. Yeah.
But also recognizing that it's a product of what you went through on how your body reacted. And it's neither good nor bad. It's just something that happened. Yes. And here's the pathway to healing. And you've walked it, so you can guide your daughter on it as well.
Yeah, I'm very aware of my mental health. My family has a history of mental health issues outside of traumas. So with having it based on traumas, it was probably a little exacerbated based on genetics. But I want to make sure she understands, look, genetics is not going to be the total player in this. It's going to be a multitude of things, and you can control how the body is going to respond to it. Sorry.
She's a very lucky lady to have you as a dad to be able to explain that, because a lot of children don't even get that explanation. They witness what they witness, and then they carry that with them for their lives until they themselves work it out.
Right.
So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And you've identified the 4M's of mental health, and you've specifically said movement is very important. But also, can you expand on the mind, meditation, and the meaning, the other 3 M's in your 4M protocol?
Yeah, so I look at the first 3 as interrelated. Okay, movement will drive the mind, and the mind is really about not getting your head on straight, but having a clear mind and a clear mindset towards what it is you want to accomplish. And that can come in the form of friendships, having a network of people to talk to when you're having problems, a therapist, or some way of conveying what it is that's bothering you, something that's going on inside you. Meditation, I found, and a friend of mine said it could just be the 3 M's, you combine mind and meditation, but I broke them out very specifically because when I first thought of mind, it was having a therapist to talk to, someone to go to. But what happens when you don't have that instance of depression or angst that you can't just go and pick up the phone or go to an appointment? Meditation, just breathing calmly, going through a breath motion to calm the mind and the body, to reset, is very distinct from mind, in my opinion. So I broke those 2 out. And meditation was a very important facet for me, again, when I wasn't seeing my therapist. Just going through breath work helped me calm my body, calm my mind, focus on one thing that wasn't an issue for me at the time. If I was worried about work, I'm going to focus on my breath, so I'm not worried about work, and just forget about it for even just a few breaths, 5 minutes or 20 minutes of just breath work. And there are specific meditations that can be used for calming the vagus nerve. There are ones that can just be used for even just standing in line at a grocery store. You get a little frustrated because the lady in front of you or the guy in front of you forgets they want to pick out every coin in their purse to get the exact change, and you're getting frustrated. Well, taking a couple of deep breaths because you're triggered for some reason calms the body, calms the mind. So those first 3 M's are very interrelated, because when you calm the mind, the body wants to move. When you do move the body, the mind will calm down. So they're very, in the breath work that you can do during running, in my case, or walking, all interrelate. So those three I put in a kind of a circle loop of working together. But around that is meaning. And if you don't have a purpose, Simon Sinek calls it as, what's your why? If you don't have a reason for why you're doing anything, like we just explained, I have a reason because I want my daughter to know there's another path, that I want service members or, fellow veterans to know that this is not the end of their life or their career just because you're going through something. In my case, I had a very high security clearance, top secret security clearance. Well, most people believe, if you have mental health issues, you can't have a clearance. Well, I did. Why can't you? So that's, now I have a meaning. I have a reason for telling people my story, that they can go through the same things and not have to have those fears that I'm sure are going through their minds. So meaning, putting them all together, it's not a mind plus or movement plus mind plus meaning, or body or meditation equals meaning. They're all interrelated and it's cumulative. But I find that if I can't move for some reason one day because I'm just swamped with work, but if I meditate, I can calm my body to say, okay, look, you don't have to be stressed. Things are going to be okay. The next time you have the opportunity, go for a run, go for a walk. That will help overall. They're very interrelated, all four of them. There's no cumulative 1 + 1 = 5 or equals 2 rather. You can't get a connection without, they're all interrelated is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree totally. The mind, what we do with our mind affects our body, and what we do with our body affects our mind. We can't extricate one from the other. And meaning, there's a lot of people don't have meaning in their life,
right.
Which literally destroys the soul, because, we're not fulfilling that and nurturing our soul. So in giving our life meaning, I do believe that what we go through helps us to help others, because we've been there, we understand it, we've walked that path. So we can help others when they're hitting the same things that we've hit. And it gives us that empathy, that compassion for others as well. So thank you.
Yeah.
And you talked about your 4M's just now, and what makes them non-traditional in your experience?
The very fact that a doctor would not prescribe them. And as I explained very early on, is my cycle with my depression while I was in the service in the forces was, I get depressed, they'd throw pills at me, talk therapy, get you better, quote unquote, better, take you off the medicine, no need to go back to talk therapy. And then, oh my gosh, another trigger, you're back depressed. We'll just throw this cycle of pills will solve all. The non-traditionalness of this is movement has as you pointed out, it releases the right chemicals that the body needs, the mind needs to help recover from the depression or the anxiety. We would not expect a traditional doctor to think meditation is going to help with depression. And nobody is ever going to ask you, what is your why, unless you're in a management, workshop saying, why are you here? Ethereally, why as a company, not as an individual. So traditionally, we don't think of these things as medicine, as medically helping somebody overall long term. And I think if we can get away from the pills, and they have their place. I'm not going to try to say that what I'm advocating is the panacea that will help everybody. I think that in conjunction with the pills, if that's what you have to do, these things will help you mitigate the need for them long term.
Yeah, absolutely. And that comes down to beliefs, doesn't it? If you believe you need a doctor for healing, you won't heal unless you go and see that doctor and take the pills as prescribed by that doctor. And yes, you can do other things like you've done and I've done. But if you believe that you can heal without the pills, then those other things, your 4M's, will help you on your own healing journey. But it comes back to, what do you believe you need in your own healing?
Right. And you have to want to get better I think is what you're essentially advocating. You have to know that there is an end to the tunnel. It's not an endless darkness, if you will, associated with depression. There is something better on the other side.
Yes, for sure. And Dave, can you give me an example from your own life or work of how you've built resilience? Because you're a different man now from what you used to be.
I think it's just going through this whole process, quite frankly. Having had the awareness of what I was going through, seeing the other side as a possibility, like I just said, that's the resilience of where I am different. Because if you had asked me back in 2019, 2018, what's on the other side, I would have said nothing. To be quite frank with you, I was suicidal. And I don't seem to want to minimize that or overplay it, but suicide is a factor with depression, and we have to be aware of it. And if you are suicidal, I hope that you get the help that you need and realize that, look, the short-term solution, the short-term answer in your mind is not the long-term solution. There is a way to get through this. And having movement, mind, meditation, and meaning, that meaning will drive you to the other side and get you out of the suicidal ideations, the suicidal tendencies, because you have to have purpose. And I think too many people today have lost the meaning. They've lost the reason of why they want to be here. And they can talk about, oh, well, I've got so many followers, or I've got so many friends, but how many deep connections do we really have? And I think that drives, having a meaning as well. Purpose is there to be there for other people, and knowing that they're there for you as well. And it's just something that, a lot of us in the forces, we lose when we leave the military. We have connection. We know that the guy or gal to our left or right is there for us no matter what. In the deepest, darkest days. And I still have old shipmates that I know that if I'm depressed again and I get suicidal, if I'm really at that point, I'm going to give that guy a call, and he lives 4 hours away, and we will stay on the phone until we get to each other and get to somewhere where we can get the help. And he's got the same call. I would drive to him if he has those thoughts. But a lot of us lose that when we leave the forces. And that drives the depression deeper. And I hope that more people will reach out to their old shipmates, their old friends, their old comrades, and understand that, look, we're not in this alone. There's a reason to be here.
And I love that you've got that support, Dave. That's really fabulous, because when I was in the same situation as you and felt suicidal, I didn't feel able to reach out. I saw people reaching in, but I wasn't receptive to their reaching in. I kind of saw it and dismissed it.
Well, I'll be honest with you, I did too for very many years, but this one friend of mine that I'm particularly talking about, he and I just were both in a point where we said, look, if you ever get to that point again, we have a pact that we will call each other. Now, it didn't help that sometimes he was deploying to the Middle East when I was depressed, but I always knew that I could call him or text him and say, look, I'm bad. I'll be okay, because I know that when you're back, we'll get through this. Easy day. And the door has to be both ways. And a lot of times I found that when people were offering, hey, if you're ever depressed or suicidal, you call me, it felt like a forced function. Like they felt they had to say it, but they couldn't really relate to what it was or what it is I'm going through at the time. So even if I called them, they wouldn't understand, or they would say the wrong things, very well meaning, but say the wrong things that would make me feel worse. So having people that have been through it, and this is why I advocate, and I enjoy talking. I don't enjoy it, but I advocate and talk about my journey as one to tell people, look, I've been there. I'm here to help you. There is another path than what you're thinking short term.
And I'm hearing as well that because of what you've gone through is why you're doing what you're doing now to help others, because you've walked that path. You understand what it feels like, what it looks like, and how it impacts your family, so you can see the bigger picture.
Yes, no, absolutely. Because I've been through it, I don't want others to have to go through as far as I've gone through with it.
Yeah, thank you. And what one tip could you give somebody today who's feeling depressed or suffering with PTSD? What's one thing that would help them?
Personally, I think it's just go for a walk. And it's not just because the movement will get the mind, with some chemicals released, but getting back to nature and the sunlight on your body, on your face, just looking up in the sky and realizing that there's so much more out there than just what you're feeling right now. There's more to life. And to me, one of the reasons I moved to Florida was it's the sunshine state for a reason, is the vitamin D effect is very real. And why not get out in the sun, and a walk will do that. And I know a lot of people will be like, well, I don't feel like it. I get it. Been there, done that. But once you do it once, you'll do it a second time and a third time, and then it becomes second nature. And then you'll feel yourself coming out of, maybe not dramatically, but you can feel a change, that you're not as depressed as you were the day before.
Yes, and I've felt that as well in my own life, walking with the dogs, and with having dogs, you have to take them out for a walk. You can't not walk outside. So dogs are a great help to get you outside. But as you say, yes, you've got to take that action and take those steps to get outside and do that. And it's such a massive mood lift when you get outside in that green space, and especially if the sun's shining, the sky's blue.
Yes, no, absolutely. And to the point of having dogs, I have my own dog. He's not a service animal by law, but he is technically an emotional support animal, for whatever that's worth. Because I know he knows when I'm feeling down, and I know when I can tell when he's trying to help me. And even just that I know I just took him out 5 minutes before. If I come back and I get depressed over something, or if he sees me, tear up at something, he goes to the door to indicate he needs to go out. Or he'll come over and put his head on my shoulder or my lap. That's a sign that, hey, look, you've got to recognize, look, you're not in the right mindset. Something has to change. And even if it's just taking the dog for another 5-minute walk, it's better than just sitting there and, I don't like using the word, but wallowing in pity, or feeling not feeling as good as you should. It's better to go for that 5-minute walk, with or without the dog, but I'm an advocate for dogs.
That's one very special dog you've got there, Dave.
Yep. He and I are best buds. He's my pal Pulver, I call him.
Oh, that's fabulous. Really fabulous.
Yeah.
And thank you for all of that. And where can people find you and look up more of your work with the 4M's?
The best place to find me, honestly, day to day, is LinkedIn. I also have my own small business, Snell Advisory Group. It's snelladvisory.com, where I have my cybersecurity and private investigation work. But it's the best way to get me if you want me to come talk and share my story.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your vulnerability and your own healing journey with our audience.
It's my pleasure, and I will always be here to advocate for helping people on this subject.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you for listening. Please share this podcast with anyone who you think will benefit. And can you leave me a review wherever you've listened to it to help me reach more people? Thank you.